Hello everyone out there, this is the Southern Fried Nerd, and today we are doing a top 10 countdown on the worst Disney cartoons of all time. Now, before we get started, let's make a note of the rules. One, the main key rule is here, it has to be a Disney cartoon. Now, for some honorable mentions. Honorable mentions that we have to point out would be stuff that I thought were good cartoons, like The Emperor's New School and Dave the Barbarian. Don't both are really fun, good cartoons. Bonkers, even though it hasn't aged well, I feel like it's still not deserving of this top 10. There's others that aren't really good either that didn't make it, like Teacher's Pet, The Buzz on Maggie, and The Mighty Ducks. And The Mighty Ducks got saved because when you have Tim Curry and Tony J sharing screen time, it's really hard to hate on these cartoons. Now that we've said all that, let's hop into the top 10. Number 10. He's not the one I'm bragging, but he's the American Dragon. American Dragon Jake Long. The reason why this cartoon made the countdown is because of one simple reason. Annoying main character. Yes, I never really could stand Jake Long. Something rubbed me the wrong way about him. He tried to be too hip, and that really didn't come off well. Comparisons to other cartoons at the time where they had three people groups, like American Dragon, Jake Long. There was also cartoons like, My Life as a Teenage Robot, Danny Phantom, and we also had another one that was Kim Possible, which worked really well because all three characters had an importance. Like Ron had an importance to Kim, and Wade did too, but really, can you remember anything that the other two did with Jake? And that's another bad point too. Also, isn't it funny that John DiMaggio voices a dog named Foo Dog in this series, and the main character is named Jake, and then in a later series he voices a dog named Jake in Adventure Time? Interesting, isn't it? Number 9. Something about Lilo and Stitch, the series, never really caught on to me right. It always felt like it took some of the fun out of the movie. At the same time, some people might not like this analogy, but it felt like a Pokemon ripoff. Like how they had to catch all the experiments. It just didn't feel good at points. There were some points where it, just felt like they had to just catch the experiments. That's all I can really say on this. I mean, it took some of the great elements out of the movie and just got rid of them. Number 8, The Replacements. Another cartoon, this is a cartoon that really felt like it was a little behind its time in a way. The Replacements followed two orphan kids who saw an ad in a comic, and they call Flimco, who sends them a daredevil dad and a super agent mom. And anytime that something messed up happens in their life, instead of deal with it, they replace like a teacher or something else, or babysitter or something else. And I don't know, the show really didn't connect with me, and a lot of people that much either. It just, when you look back at it, doesn't really feel like it had a great charm to it, like most Disney cartoons did. Number 7. The Hercules series. Now, the reason why the Hercules cartoon series didn't really work well to me, now this really took the fun out of the movie. What they did in one song in the movie, The Show's Growth, it took literally an entire series of probably at least 60-something episodes, if I'm not mistaken, and a lot of ways, it just showed it's awkward. Hercules was an awkward series, and plus, I didn't like it a lot when they bring the singing divas in to explain parts. It felt weird and awkward, and that's all I can really say about this series. It didn't do the movie justice. It wasn't really funny. There's nothing else to really say. Number 6. You know how I said Bonkers wasn't in the countdown? Well, I kinda lied. See, Bonkers isn't in for the series Bonkers, but he is in for something else that he was in. something called Raw Tunage, which was a couple of short cartoons in one series where it would be mostly Bonkers and Marsupilami. Now, if the Bonkers series was a Who Framed Roger Rabbit ripoff, the Raw Tunage parts were a Bugs Bunny ripoff at best. They didn't feel like they had their own charm or any personality whatsoever. It just felt bland and boring at points. It just felt like been there, done that. And the fact of the matter that I didn't even know Marsupilami had a cartoon before this. I thought Marsupilami was just a Sega Genesis game. I never knew that it was a cartoon before I had actually seen this some time ago. And I was stunned. And it really wasn't as fun as the game, trust me on this. You know, most games reflect the series, but it didn't really, and I had no idea Marsupilami was even with Disney before that. Number 5. Disney's Doug. Oh my god. If Doug was a pretty good cartoon when it was with Nickelodeon for 4 seasons. Then they brought it to Disney for 3 seasons when he was in the 7th grade. It took all of the personality and charm out of Doug and just made it boring. And there's even a clip, if you look it up on YouTube, where Doug's dad tries to give him the talk, the sex talk, birds and the bees, and literally Doug turns it around on his dad and tells him something, and I'm like, how shit do you know this in the 7th grade? I mean, it's not surprising, I guess, in the society, but still, what the hell? There are some things that they're just bad about this cartoon. I mean, if it's this high, it's gotta be bad, right? I mean, it's kind of not surprising to say. Number 4, the Snooks and Meat Funny Cartoon Show. Now, art style wise, this was pretty much Ren and Stimpy. So, what's bad about that? It's basically Ren and Stimpy with no personality. There's nothing really funny about it. It's boring. It's a big clusterfuck, to put it like that. And that's the sad part. It's a clusterfuck. I mean, not much is funny about it. It dwells on boredom for something that looks like a Ren and Stimpy. It just has no charm. It looks ugly as all hell, too. I mean, at least when Ren and Stimpy looked ugly as all hell, I could get away with it because it was funny. It was kind of adult themed. There are some minor adult themes, I guess, in this cartoon to say in a sense, but it's not what it was. And that's what kind of makes this weird. I just don't know what else to say about this. Number 3. Now, this might be one that shocks people that this isn't number 1. But number 3 is the Quack Pack. Quack Pack was pretty much the DuckTales group of Huey, Dewey, and Louie grown into teenagers with no differentiating personality, and they're living with Donald now instead of Uncle Scrooge. Which, yeah, they're boring as all hell for one. I mean, you look back and they read comic books and they were trying to learn lessons like cleaning their room and stuff like that. And I never understood why Daisy was a reporter. What was up with that part in it? It just didn't make any much of all sense. Donald was okay at best, but couldn't make up for how bad Huey, Dewey, and Louie were with having no considering personality. What 2 cartoons could be worse than Quack Pack, you might be wondering? Well, number 2. Brandy and Mr. Whiskers. This is a cartoon that makes me cringe when I think about it a lot. For one, this is an odd couple that just doesn't work. Brandy is a superficial, not really much of a personality, pampered poodle, and they crash on a plane in the jungle, but for those who don't know some of the story, but it just doesn't work. Brandy it's like Mr. Whiskers has to do so hard to try to make things seem fun in this cartoon, but nothing really comes off as fun. It really comes off as very mundane. and cringeworthy at points. This cartoon just wasn't enjoyable at all. Nothing was, and even some of the other characters that try to make it enjoyable just doesn't work. It was bad. Even the theme song is terrible. And number one is Teo Supro. Teo Supro was a cartoon that came out in 2002 that literally feels like it's something that came out in the 70s. And it doesn't even really feel like its own cartoon. It feels like something that came together with something else. Teo Supro was bad in very many ways. For one, from the generic names of the heroes, which Captain Cardwell, who thought he was an alien. Then there's Skate Lad, who was an Evel Knievel ripoff, and you have Rope Girl. Seriously, these are like the most generic superhero names I've ever heard of. Transformation sequence was they would jump in the rope and transform. Also, another thing that's really offsetting is that the first thing that set in the theme, besides the name of the show and their battle cries, which were terrible, Baza, Chica, and Whoopa, was when the governor, who, yes, they're protecting a governor, not a president or a mayor, they're protecting the governor for some reason, is, hey, you kids have some funky fresh moves. Who the fuck says that shit? It just feels bad, and plus it was unoriginal as all hell. I mean, you got Mark Hamill to voice a clown that wasn't the Joker, who was known as the Birthday Bandit. I'm not making this shit up. Look it up on Wikipedia. We're not lying here. It's just, the show was bad. It was unoriginal. It felt, the animation was terrible. It felt like something, like I said, that came from the 70s, and this was 2002. That's all I can really say about it. Now, everybody, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this countdown. I know there's probably going to be some differences with people, but if you have any suggestions of what you would have probably thought would have been in the countdown, leave a comment below. Don't forget to like, and if you like this, subscribe. We'll be making more countdowns soon. This is the Southern Nerd. Smell you later.